So it is really a deep honor on a sister level to bring up our next guest. I met Roxi Shohadaee when we were producing one of Burning Man's global leadership conferences. And I knew that she was formidable. I mean, she had amazing spreadsheets. She could work with Asana. She had great outfits, great charisma. But when I really learned how powerful and skillful and magical this woman was, it was when I caught her in a moment of pretty deep struggle. A lot of us are event producers, and in the midst of a difficult moment, like a run on tickets, or you got people at the door, or you have an injury, or you have, authorities show up. Roxi, one day at the office we were sharing, was assaulted verbally in a certain way by a really curmudgeonly character. And she didn't know that I was there, and I didn't intercede because in this moment with this difficult individual, Roxi did something that I hope I can always summon the courage to do. She held him, metaphorically. She listened to his concern. I'm an empath, and Roxi is too for sure, but she managed to absorb the moment and all this anger and stress of this person that was just coming at her and flooding at her that she didn't really have much to do with. And she just met him there. She was strong, she was grounded, she was whole, she was real. She listened. She took all the time that he needed to have his moment. And then she managed to talking him out of it, helping to move things in a productive direction. And I was kind of a fly on the wall, and I went up to Roxi afterwards, and I just said, I just really can't believe what you did. I wish I had the skill to stop time and respond so graciously and powerfully at the same time to this really difficult moment. And she said, Meg's equanimity. And I didn't really know what that meant before really encountering her in that total ninja moment of being able to be gracious and skillful and also a ninja at the same time. I was so proud. And I've been so lucky to get to work with Roxi on projects. We've often gone to our managers about how our organizations or their organizations under our sort of, quasi-leadership should collaborate. And most of the time they've blessed it, and then there's been cancellations. But when it came to this conference, Roxi and I had this really cute conversation where we realized that we were the bosses. So we didn't have to ask anybody if we could partner on this and if we could help to bolster one another and spotlight one another's successes and triumphs. And she actually really inspired the name. I didn't realize it until after we kind of launched it, but before we called the conference Reinventaissance, Roxi came up with a platform called Regenaissance. Yeah, good ideas spread. And what do they say? Imitation is the highest form of flattery. She was great about it. She just said, yeah, but make sure that we get to share our story. So ladies and gentlemen, Roxi Shohadaee is a leader within Design Science Studio and the Buckminster Fuller Institute. And we're going to give her the floor to share with you her story about Regenaissance and the amazing projects that she's been up to. Over to you, Roxi.
Thank you, Megs. Aw, what a sweet intro. I have to just segue and say that this epic sister and friend and woman, when I came into the Burning Man organization working on the Global Leadership Conference with her, she gave me responsibilities that I had never, quote unquote, earned. There were things that she trusted me to do that I had never really done, but I knew that I could hold that were incredibly complicated and important. And that trust and unwavering belief was so transformative and important for my development as a producer, as an artist, as a curator, as a supporter of culture and creativity. And you always do that, and you're just continuing to do that. So I love that you got to tell that story, and you have just been such a radically important part of me and getting to step up into my fullness and to do all the things that I love to do so much. So yeah, Megsy, we love you. You're the best. And it's so good to see so many familiar faces and friends from the Burning Man community. And I just wanted to also start with a quick, just shout out, gratitude to you, Megs, gratitude to the team, and to all the innovators and creators who have harnessed their resilience and creativity during this time. It's a weird time, and it's a super important one. So thank you all. And I'm stoked to share a little bit about what I've been up to. Which is kind of wild and crazy, but it's happening. So I want to kind of quickly, before I dive into the Design Science Studio, talk a little bit more about the Regenaissance itself. And so I'll kind of start a little bit with a story and where we are in space and time. And I want to just start out by saying that art and design are cross-cultural technology and language for systemic change. And we're amidst this great transition right now as a human family, as a culture, as a species, on the heels of decades of over-industrialization and alienation from nature. We're amidst this emergence of new approaches and ideas and solutions and connections. And this emergence is leading towards a new cultural expansion of art and science and literature, which are akin to huge cultural shifts of the past, like the Renaissance or the golden era of classical Greece. And so this is kind of this place of the Regenaissance, this new movement that's kind of advocating for a world that works for 100% of life. It's this kind of mashup of the words Renaissance and regeneration. And so when I talk about the Renaissance, right, it was this critically influential period and cultural movement, which brought this period of scientific revolution and political and economic rebirth and transformation through art at the dawn of modern European history. And creators were funded to focus all their energy on their craft. And it promoted this rediscovery of classical philosophy and literature and art as this pivotal tool for social and systemic change. Yep. And in history, it was this transitional period between the end of the Middle Ages and the start of the modern age. And yes, it's important to acknowledge that the Renaissance was built off the backs of colonial wealth. And we're moving forward, we're decolonizing our futures, and we're building bridges. And so this is where it's time for the Regenaissance, right? This, through interdisciplinary art, we can really transform our path forward. We can regenerate our culture and our planet and our relationship with the living world. And not everyone is super familiar with what regeneration is. And I've been studying regeneration for the last 2 years because of this. I have a background in art and sustainability. Those are my degrees. I have a BFA in art, and I've been studied sustainability in college, but then I got another continuing educational degree, or I've been studying regeneration because I've been trying to understand beyond the ecological regeneration, what does it really mean? And what I've learned is it is this kind of field, if you apply regenerative principles, it's this field of design that's systemic. So you're always being deeply considerate, and it's based on principles inspired by nature. So it's aimed to kind of uplift everything, leave things better than we found them, not just leaving no trace, right? And it's through a curiosity about the system that you're embedded within, and it's always connecting to those wholes to kind of support lasting systemic change. There's these moments, right, when we experience an amazing work of art or an immersive experience or a performance, or some sort of container that rattles us and transforms us. There's that moment, that bright spark. But what is it that can actually help us? What can help last? What can help embed those changes into our futures? And there are so many beautiful principles that help when we start to study regeneration and regenerative design. And so this period, this transitional period that we are in, that I was just speaking to, right, the Regenaissance, I want to give us an opportunity for a moment and just imagine, because this is the reason and part of the like grounding of why I've been doing the work that I've been doing. And so, you know, just here we are in 2021, and there's this emergence of a series of solutions and positive visions of the future. Imagine this is led by artists and revolutionaries and activists and systems thinkers and doers. And it's kind of created this perfect cocktail for an explosion of new ideas and blueprints to redesign our current financial, social, and cultural systems. So in this space, just knowing that in order to transform our collective capacity and actually create a harmonic future, we first need to envision it. So imagine we're at the end of a decade, a Regenaissance decade-long mission. And after a decade, you know, what might be some themes that emerge? Maybe new governance systems implemented at scale and then scaled up by a city or national level. Maybe we've reshaped our financial system and there's been massive growth of new forms of gifting and trading and a new way of redistributing and understanding what value is. We've come back to nature and its principles. We've shifted into the commons. We've redesigned our living environments. We're living in community. We've revitalized our infrastructural systems and eradicated institutionalized racism. There's eco-villages that are connected to nature that are inclusive. We're building with permaculture and biomaterials. Life is thriving. Climate problems are addressed at a planetary level with governments talking to each other and working towards a common goal. There's developments on equity and social justice. Just really feel into this possible future that we can move into, right? And here we are a decade later, and there's a rise of traditional ecological knowledge and indigenous practices and an uproar against the ontological quality of technology and a shift in paradigm to technology that's designed for well-being and not just growth. And just we've regenerated our relationship with our world and with each other as a family. And so now coming back to 2021 and coming back to the place that we're in, why? What sparked this change? What sparked this transition? Kind of looking forward and now looking back, we think about how important it is over the course and the sands of time that through history we have seen the radical importance of art to catalyze and propel movements. Art can transform the world and has transformed the world. And there's so many incredible examples, from Guernica to gay rights and Black Lives Matter, the spoken word revolution. There's so many art movements that were incredibly revolutionary and important for shifting the tides of where we were and where we're going as a more than human family. And so as we know this new narrative that we have seen throughout history, we're in this space that we recognize that it is time for art that changes history. It's time to uplift the creators in any and every way. And it's built in this space where we're in, you know, these times that we're in of radical systems change. And we're questioning everything because of how separated we are. And even in the pandemic, we're like looking really closely at our broken systems. And we recognize that everything it needs to change, and everyone is needed on board, all hands on deck. And this regenaissance is kind of in this moment where a new system is emerging and a new narrative and a new story that is interwoven with nature and leaves no one behind. And so because of this, and this like deep passion and clarity that can come from this place that we're in, the time is never more ripe for the Buckminster Fuller. So Meg's mentioned Buckminster Fuller Institute. And so the Design Science Studio, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment, is a partnership between my creative studio, habRitual, and the Buckminster Fuller Institute. And Buckminster Fuller had this vision that we can really make the world work for all life in a really short amount of time through cooperation without the disadvantage of anyone. And so we're in this time and we're ripe for this change. And so because we have time for this change and we recognize that it is time to realign ourselves and, you know, there's a quote a little later that says, pessimism is a luxury of a less urgent time. And so we created the Design Science Studio, one, to completely support and uplift and build the capacity of the creative community to respond to this moment, to articulate this possibility of a healthy planet throughout a decade-long mission of creativity expressed revolution, to bring some of these visions to the world as we recognize this critically important moment that we're in. So what exactly is design science? I'll skip ahead to the kind of breakdown. So design science is short for comprehensive anticipatory design science. So it's all about like discovering through experience, creating intentionally, looking ahead, but starting with the whole. So that exercise we did a few moments ago where we thought about like where we wanted to be in 2030, those are some of the tools that can be harnessed through design science. And so the Design Science Studio is really built in correlation with the Design Science Decade, which is this decade-long mission to say, okay, Buckminster Fuller had this vision in 1965 that we could really retool the way that we were functioning. And within 10 years, we had made all the right tools for all the wrong reasons. So we could shift to a world that worked for all. But in order to do that, we need to kind of look ahead and actually think about what steps would be needed to take us there. And this is the phase for commitments. Even without knowing how we'll get there, we have to commit to going for it. Like how can all of us be a resource for positive carbon balancing, ecosystem regenerating, operationalizing this future that we know is possible, and use the way that we cooperate as a human family to move towards this vision. And so these phases are really just a guidepost for the steps that actually get us there. And so I keep kind of touching back on art and design and this like intersection of kind of working across disciplines to merge and to move towards, because we're kind of the one thing that I love to highlight is that in a lot of ways we're a funnel, kind of a speaker between the people moving the needle and the rest of the world as artists. And so through design and art and creative development and kind of interdisciplinary innovation, we can really make these shifts. So all that to say, we're in this really like intense transition, and it's important to be really clear about kind of moving towards these visions of the future and take the time and the space to envision what that looks like and bring forth these visions. And so we created the Design Science Studio, which is this educational incubator for art that was launched in July, that I started working on in January of 2020. To empower creators. It was really built to see how we can uplift in this strange and wild time. It was already going to happen locally, and then the pandemic hit, so we just made it a global program to empower creators to this kind of imagine this future and funnel and direct their creative force towards a world that works for all, and not just some people, but actually all life, and kind of catalyzing collective action through this. And so built the Design Science Studio in support of artists, in support of creators of all kinds. And when I say creators of all kinds, I mean creators of all kinds. Like the studio is comprised of 2D and 3D and 4D artists. We have illustrators and painters and writers and sculptors and creative code artists, like AR and VR and XR. We have game designers, community organizers, experience designers, product interaction, producers, philosophers, performers, musicians, scientists, poets. It's epic. There's 144, and it's only the first year. And they're amazing and all over the world. And, we really created this to uplift them in many ways. One of the radical visions that's a part of the studio is to fund them a lot, is to transform and move wealth to support and uplift creators for a decade, so that they can focus on their important work on these missions. And so every year we're aiming to raise at least $5 million to give money to creators. We have baseline support for the studio itself, and the rest really to support creators. There's so many opportunities for collaboration, and we have incredible artists doing mind-bending work. And soon we're going to be launching, which I'm so excited about. And this is just a little bit of a recap of, just a few of the artists, and you'll start to see that, everything from books and installations and games and temples and, toolkits and systems maps, it's really birthing the Regenaissance. And so the kind of last little bit that I'll cover here is just like what it is and how we built it. The studio was really this kind of three-part. One part is this curriculum. So we're trying to help people to have a real full systems perspective of what is the tensegrity, what is the system that we're trying to approach to support with our creative outputs. And so we're learning about futurism and regeneration and indigenous wisdom and the sustainable development goals and systems thinking. And then we have this like place to weave the community together and uplift the movement, the movement forward with partners and organizations and thought leaders for collective action, and then launching and scaffolding and funding and supporting them. And so here we are in time, right here. And all the projects are being interconnected and launched in this grand campaign, which is called Regenera Rising, and is going to be happening at the end of next month. And globally curated will be there as one of our content partners. We're so excited about. So we want to just really invite everyone here to join us in this celebration of the Regenaissance, in this moment where we're coming together. We're celebrating the launch of a movement, the launch of a decade, and bringing all creators of all kinds to create a world that works for all. And so it will take place in the capital of the Regenaissance, which is called Regenera. And it's a world build, Regenera, and it's a world build that we built that actually is connecting the entire narrative and story of all of these projects from all over the world. And so this is an invitation to architect the future together, to be a part of the revolution, and to come together as a creative, epic family to make moves and really stand for supporting and uplifting how incredibly important creativity is for the transition that we have to go through. And so we have a few core members of the team, and then so many more team members and amazing partners. But it's really this time, we know that it's a touch and go race, and we got this. We're alive right now for a reason. So I invite you all to join the revolution and come to the launch and be a part of the decade-long mission and the movement, so that we really can shift and make it through this weird transition together. And this will also, the summit will also be a party. We're going to celebrate massively because it is time to celebrate. And we're doing the work. So thank you all for innovating and for caring and for just being resilient. And this project really came from my heart of hearts. I just care so much about artists and creativity, and also I'm a complete and total nerd. And so I just see how important it is to weave, interdisciplinary work together and just uplift our creative communities. And so I'm so in service to all of you and what we can really build together for the future. Yay!
I love you, Roxi. You have so many fans. You're inspiring so many. And we're going to come to your event at the end of March. We can have a Reinventaissance reunion at the Regenaissance event. And Regenative Rising, we'll post it. We'll put it on our newsletter. We just absolutely respect and love you. I can't even really believe how much you've grown, and you've always been amazing, but this vision is just, it's beautiful. I don't even know. It just takes, I think it's taking my spirit to the next level to see this really powerful artistic vision that you have for the future. And thank you for inviting us to participate, Roxi. You are so much love. Thank you.
Meow.
And I knew I was going to cry at some moment. My dad always does when he has to give wedding toast. So thanks for Tigliano.
No, it's beautiful.
Anyway.
I cried yesterday. One of our artists was sharing, and I was just like, oh my God, your work is so amazing.
Yeah.
And this is one of like dozens of people. And I was just like, so yeah, thank you. I love you. Got this together, girl.
All right, I love you. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to show Isabel's beautiful artwork around Roxi's talk and the Design Science Studio. And that will give me a wonderful moment to lay the foundation for our final talk before we unveil the beautiful illustrations that Isabel has done in full for our Reinventaissance journey and launch headlong into the Full Tilt Social Club after party. We're definitely going to pop some of that champagne that our adoring fans brought by to the Armageddon Beach Party studio.